Okay, so normally for my videos, I put in captions to go along with whatever I say. I am aware that sometimes I speak too quickly or that I don't enunciate my words properly, in which case the captions would help clarify what I'm saying. But then my editing software decided that it didn't want to cooperate and essentially did a rollback of an entire day's worth of work. The whole voiceover, the transcript, the captions, all that was just gone when I booted up my software again. And before you say that I wasn't saving, no, I have a habit of manually saving every few minutes, and I even have the autosave function set for every 15 minutes. I even checked the autosaved versions of the project and my work was gone from there as well. So I don't know what happened. I'm not about to proofread another 4,000 words and make sure that the auto-generated transcript got everything that I'm saying properly, which I know for a fact that it doesn't. Every Proloca and Laevatain and administrator and other Endfield words got transcribed as something else. So I apologize for the lack of captions, but quite frankly, I am not in the mood to redo hours of work. So if I missed removing any possible repeats, or if there's any scratchy audios here and there, well, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. That being said, here's the video. I hope you enjoy. What exactly defines a person and makes them who they are? For example, if you replaced every single memory and experience that you have with someone else's, would you still be you? Kind of like the ship of Theseus analogy. Anyway, this philosophical idea is the topic of Laevatain's companion quest. Also, spoilers for the entire quest, but I'm sure you already knew that. I know that the quest has been out since the launch of the game, either January 21st or 22nd, depending on your location, but I only did the quest on the 2nd of February, while also at Authority level 52. I know, I'm late, but the factory must expand. Also, the final retake of this recording is being done on the day that Gilberta is on banner, and I have this incredible lack of motivation to redo this entire video, so yeah. This video will be out when it's out. So the companion quest begins with Proloca asking the administrator, us, about our amnesia, and whether or not we recovered. We reply that no, memory is still no good, and after reassuring us that our memories will naturally return, she leaves the room. When she does, however, there is a flash of light circling the magical gender-changing rock in the room. We touch the magical gender-changing rock and get taken to a different dimension, also known as a protocol space. Leaving the icy tunnel that we found ourselves in, which is very reminiscent of the painted world of Ariandel, we come across a red-haired girl. Even though we don't learn her name until later, I'm just gonna call her Laevatain since it'll make things a lot easier, and I'm not about to go through half of this video calling her a red-haired girl. Laevatain tells us that we don't belong in this protocol space, and that the only way we can leave is if we remember, whatever that means. She explains that 1. The protocol space that we are in is a space constructed with memories, and 2. Only those who forget their past will end up in this protocol space. When asked if she also lost her memories, Laevatain says that rather than just losing her memories, her mind is filled with memories and experiences that were never hers in the first place, and the whole reason why she's in this protocol space is to figure out who she really is. We go through the protocol space with Laevatain and come across bits and pieces from her memories, or at least what could be her memories. Eventually, we come across a ruined battlefield where a fiery specter of Laevatain appears and begins to taunt her. I'm going to call the specter Laevatain Alter for now, and she warns Laevatain that she should just give up trying to recover her past, saying that it's for her own good. Laevatain refuses, intent on finding out who she was before her memory loss, and Laevatain Alter vanishes, but not before thawing out a few enemies that were in the area. After defeating the enemies, Laevatain explains that her altar always appears at the end of every search, She then thanks us for our help and kicks us out of the protocol space. We regain consciousness in the same room as before with a worried Perlica right next to us. We tell her what happened in the protocol space and about Laevatain, and after getting a lead on someone matching her description, we head down to Valley 4. Upon arriving at the Originium Science Park, we find traces of Laevatain's memories. We follow these traces until we find an old newspaper clipping which describes a few events back on Terra, such as a volcanic disaster in the Ursus Casimius borders. Neural confirmed. We continue to follow Laevatain's traces, but now a question took root in the administrator's mind. If somebody forgot who they were but tries to step into the shoes of their previous self, are they still the same person, or are they just being a mere imitation? Upon finding a broken radio, we fix it with a puzzle that I spent way too much time on, and we see another trace of Laevatain. In a moment of frustration of not finding anything about her memories, she treats herself to some ice cream which, if I had a nickel every single time a Fire Element character used ice cream to calm themselves down, I would be 10 cents richer. Another memory trace appears at the cliffside where Memory Laevatain wanders off into a protocol space, leaving behind a book. Also, a bit off topic, but whoever put this Dark Souls ass message of below jump good stuff, screw you, because I couldn't interact with the book until I was literally one step away from falling. Anyway, the book revealed a page with a bunch of words with a few of them being crossed out. However, going by the context clues, it's pretty easy to infer that the words that are not crossed out are related to Laevatain's memories. Why do I say this? Because one set of words is Land Cruiser, which is undoubtedly the Rose Island landship. Speaking of Rose Island, Perlica calls us at that exact moment and tells us that she found some old files from Rose Island, and one of them was about an operator named Surtr, of which Laevatain is the reconvener of. Surtr also had memory issues, and these very memory issues was passed down to Laevatain even as a reconvener. What's a reconvener, you ask? Well, to put it simply, reconveners are essentially copies of previous operators. Their memories, their arts, their history, all of it is essentially stored as data in a data bank known as the Originium Matrix. And then this data is implanted into a new body, creating the reconvener. This is why the gacha animation is a bunch of Originium crystals being shot down from our spaceship onto the planet. Or the reconveners are just in drop pods and are being sent feet first down onto the planet. Now, going back to Surtr, who already had memory problems, if we copy-paste those memory problems into a reconvener who knows that they are a copy of someone else, they now have memory issues squared, which is exactly what's troubling Laevatain. Anyway, Perlica tells us that the further Laevatain delves into the protocol space, the less likely she is to actually find her memories, and also that her injuries will only worsen over time, which is not unlike what Laevatain Alter said. And since we're the only ones who has unrestricted access into protocol spaces, we decide to search for Laevatain and stop her from going down this self-destructive path. When we do follow Laevatain into the protocol space, we see an illusion of Rodon torching a refugee and UWST worker alive. This is odd since the first time we meet Rodon, we immediately enter a boss fight with him and come out as the winner. Which then begs the question, is what we're seeing only an illusion, or is this something that actually happened in the past before we, the player, woke up as the administrator? So while admin is trying to figure out what's going on, Laevatain appears and saves us from going through the trouble of his boss fight again. A quick chat later, mainly with Laevatain telling us that the admin does not know how to differentiate between an illusion and reality just yet, we see a red specter of the admin walking off. We follow and come across two more illusions. The first illusion is one of Tata being attacked by two bone crushers. The second illusion is about Jenner and Andre. Two people who knew the administrator pre-amnesia, wondering if the administrator is still able to lead since, we lost our memories and most of our powers. Just like the memory with Rodon, these memories never happened. Or did they? This leads Laevatain to the realization that the illusions in this protocol space aren't memories, but instead they are a reflection of the Endman's fears of what would happen if we fail. We follow the mirage of Endman altar once more and come across another illusion, but this time it is of the Endman being worshipped by the people of Valley 4, to which Laevatain appropriately says,
Ew, that's the old you?
The worst she can say is no, right? Before we can die of cringe, the Endman cuts through the illusion of themselves, to which Laevatain approves. I mean, just look at her. Her eyes are angled a little too low to be looking at the back of Endman's head. I'm not going crazy. Oh sure, she can look at our back all she wants, but if we look at her back, she looks at us as if we're trash. Once again, Endman is left to wonder if the illusion we just saw was the true administrator. Laevatain throws us a Uno reverse card by asking us who she is, and the game gives us a close-up shot of her eyes that are absolutely hypnotic, and tells us that Surtr only left her a jumbled heap of memories. Other reconveners know who they could be and what they should do, unlike her, which is why Laevatain is so keen on finding answers of who she is and what she should do. And seeing how the both of us are in search of our memories, Laevatain offers up her hand in jolly cooperation, promising that she would help us find our lost memories. We agree, and the exit to the protocol space appears. However, when we exit, Laevatain is nowhere to be found. We follow a few leads and eventually return to the room with the magical gender-changing rock. We touch the magical rock once more, enter another protocol space, and reunite with Laevatain. She remarks on being a little bit tired, having walked her entire way to the protocol space's physical location. Man, if only she was allied with a certain someone who had unrestricted access to the protocol spaces and could essentially teleport through them. Foreshadowing is a literary device where authors, just as our chat ends, the walls of the room begin to close in on us. And yes, if you stay long enough, the walls will crush you. Nothing graphic, the screen just goes black and you restart from the beginning. After getting past the rooms that don't want us there, we end up in some hallway with more memories to interact with. Eventually, we enter a room that looks like the Dijang's Bridge, where we once again meet Laevatain Altar. Altar says that she is not in opposition of Laevatain, but instead she is actually trying to protect her since, as she said before, the answers Laevatain seeks will only destroy her. Laevatain, being the stubborn girl that she is, disagrees with her Altar's viewpoint. Altar, having seemingly given up on trying to persuade Laevatain, guides us to Surtr's home, Castel, to prove her point. And oh man, when Castel was mentioned, I honest to God leaned forward like that one gamer lean meme, even though I already knew Surtr's lore and whatnot. I know that a lot of Endfield players never played Arknights, and I'm not saying that you have to. A tower defense game is a very niche subculture in the game circle, and it's not one that many people enjoy. However, if you have the time, I do recommend just turning on some lore videos or story videos just on the side as you do some factory stuff or while you're dropping down relay towers and zip lines all around the map. If you're going to be spending a few hours trying to optimize your factory, which is going to be a lost cause, might as well do it while listening to some lore about the game. Okay, let me just stop here before I ramble even more about Arknights. Eager to get her answers, Laevatain walks off on her own into the darkness, leaving us all by our lonesome. When we do find Laevatain again, she's in the middle of a flaming ruin. As we approach her, we are stopped by Laevatain Altar, who reminds us that this is the path that Laevatain chose. Of course, being the protagonist that we are, we push through and reach Laevatain, who found the answers that she was looking for, but sadly, it was not the answers that she wanted. Once again, the question arises, do the memories make a person? And if somebody is without any true memories to call their own, do they truly exist? As Laevatain Alter warned, Laevatain's body begins to fade, burning away to cinders, so to speak. The administrator assures Laevatain that her existence is not fake, since the Laevatain that we traveled with is Laevatain, and these new memories that we made together is who she is. We then share some of our power with her in order to stabilize her existence. How this works, I have no idea. I'm not entirely up to date with Enfield's lore and whatnot. My best guess is that since reconveners are more or less made from Originium, and Edmund's art's abilities are focused around this magical cancer rock, the administrator was able to stabilize the Originium crystals itself, which in turn stabilized Laevatain. Also, the blush on Laevatain's face right here hit me right in the heart. Sadly, Surtr's trace pops up from within Laevatain to ruin the moment, guiding us down another memory lane. We're shown a few key memories of her time on Terra, like the time when she made the flame giant within her sword submit to her, the moment that she joined Rhodes Island, the people she met at Rhodes Island during her time there, and eventually how she came to see Rhodes Island as her home. After realizing that Surtr was able to find a new home in Rhodes Island, Edmund takes the opportunity to invite Laevatain to Dijiang. To quote,
"Perhaps you can find your own Endfield."
"Ha! She said the thing!" Laevatain accepts our offer to join our Endfield, and we get transported to a new section of the protocol space. It was obvious that the game was trying to give us the impression that the corridor was collapsing, kind of like the rooms from earlier. But honestly, you can just walk at a leisurely pace and you'll be just fine. When we do leave the collapsing corridor, we arrive at a new area that reminds me of the copied city from Nier. After speedrunning past the enemies, we encounter Laevatain Alter one last time. Laevatain Alter says that it is not so easy to let memories go. Laevatain, being very mature, says the equivalent of "nuh-uh" and uses violence on her altar, thematically ridding herself of her past self's doubts. The final scene, in my opinion, pretty much confirms this. The last scene with Laevatain Alter is her just giving us a small smile before vanishing. Finally, we bring Laevatain onto Dijiang as we promised, and Laevatain gives us another promise of her own. She vows to be our operator, our sword and fire, but in return demands a one-of-a-kind journey, a one-of-a-kind adventure, and a one-of-a-kind home. A place where she won't have to worry about her past memories and can just focus on the future. And then the story quest comes to a close. You know, for all of the games and stories that come out with a protagonist who has amnesia, it's always nice when the story actually delves deeper into the consequences of memory loss. I realize that Endfield is building upon the ground laid by the original Arknights, where in that game, the player character, known as the Doctor, also has amnesia, and it's probably one of the best stories involving memory loss that I've happened to experience. Not only was the build-up and the payoff worth it, there were plenty of hints and drops throughout the main story about what kind of person the Doctor was in the past. We're repeatedly told that the Doctor, pre-amnesia, was an incredibly skilled strategist and had a brilliant mind by various characters. There was one character who even compared themselves and everybody else as mere chess pieces on a board, while the Doctor was the player. Another mentioned that when they looked into the Doctor's eyes, the only thing they saw was promised victory. There was this meme circulating the Arknights community a couple of years ago about how the Doctor would pour boiling water into their mouths in order to heat up ramen. And many people assumed that it was just post-amnesia Doctor being their usual silly self. Then Calcid, one of the most important characters in Arknights, says herself that she remembers seeing the Doctor doing that very thing, even if the Doctor doesn't remember, which means one of two things. One, this is just post-amnesia Doctor doing the standard zero sanity antics and doesn't remember doing said zero sanity antics. Or two, this was actually pre-amnesia Doctor and they don't remember because of the amnesia. Speaking of Calcid, the memes about her being the ex-wife exists for a reason. She actively dislikes the Doctor in the beginning of the game, and while she works with the Doctor for the sake of Rhodes Island, she isn't exactly friendly. So it's obvious from the start that there is history between Calcid and the Doctor, and it is not good history. Then we learn about Babel and Teresa and Priestess and everything else, and when I learned that, I just sat there thinking, shit, completely understandable. However, at that point in the game, it would not be a stretch to say that pre-amnesia and post-amnesia Doctor can be seen as two different people. Many operators who knew the Doctor pre-amnesia would comment about how much the Doctor has changed. Now, there are obvious ties between the Doctor and the Administrator. They both have a vaunted history, they both woke up inside of a sarcophagus, and they both need to step into the shoes of their past selves in order to solve the major issue in front of them. Whether or not they remain the same person or become someone different is entirely up to them. However, would this technically be the same person or somebody else? I realize that I'm contradicting what I just said earlier about post and pre-amnesia Doctor being two different people, I know, but let me explain. It is a well-known fact that people can change over time. Someone as an adult may have a completely different outlook on life and a different personality compared to when they were a kid. For example, me. My family has told me on numerous occasions that as a kid, I was incredibly outgoing and pretty much an extrovert in every way, which compared to the me of now is almost the complete opposite. But you might be thinking that everyone is different as a child, so that doesn't count. Well, how about this? I know for a fact that as a teen, I was an absolute prick. And if I ever met myself from my teenage years, I would have the exact same reaction as Laevatain.
Ew, that's the old you?
And probably followed up by a "this is Sparta" kick and telling the younger me to stop being an edgy little asshat. So, despite the me of now and the me of the past having different personalities and acting like two different people, would that be considered two different people since all that happened was that I matured over time? Arguments can be made on both sides on whether or not a person at two different time periods can be two different people. Now, you might be thinking, this guy has been rambling for like a whole 5 minutes and none of it pertains to Laevatain, and that's where you'd be wrong. See, when it comes to Laevatain's case and her story quest, the overlapping theme throughout the story was about her and the Administrator's sense of identity. And my opening lines to this video, do the memories make a person? And when it comes to Laevatain, there's another layer of complication since while she isn't exactly an amnesiac since she has a few memories, she's not even sure if those memories are even her own. This is made even worse because she's basically a clone of Surtr, who also had the exact same potentially false memories. Memory issues squared, like I said before. And with the entire theme of Laevatain's character quest being focused around memories and how they define a person, I liked how the story didn't skirt around the fact that both Laevatain and the Administrator have a past self to compare themselves to. It delves deep into who they really were as a character and their fears, and at the end, Laevatain and Envin might not know who they were, but they know who they are now and who they want to be regardless of their past. And the best part is that neither of them could have come to that conclusion on their own. They needed each other to help themselves reach that conclusion. And I think that's a really nice way to end a companion quest that had a pretty philosophical topic. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't anything big. There wasn't a city or a world in danger, at least not directly. There wasn't some third-party big bad enemy that they had to defeat. Instead, the antagonist of the story was themselves. It was their own fears and their own worries. And they conquered that by coming to terms with the fact that they may never recover their memories. But ultimately, it doesn't matter, as all they can do is just move forward and make new memories as their new selves. And frankly, I think that is a great story. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe this was all just some big excuse for me to talk about Laevatain because Surtr is one of my favorite characters in Arknights. You'll never know. If you made it this far, I appreciate it, thank you. If you also play Endfield, feel free to add me in-game. Having an extra friend for stocks and clue exchanges will always be nice. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that will be. Okay, but can I just talk about the beginning of the quest where we touched the magical gender-changing rock? Like, why? Why would you touch the magical thing that clearly is behaving weird? Nothing ever good comes from touching a magical thing that is behaving weirdly. The Dark Souls player in me was practically screaming to not touch it because in Dark Souls 1, we touch a magical painting and then guess what? We get sucked into a magical painted world. In Dark Souls 3, we touch a scrap of a painting held out by some homeless dude and we get sucked into another painting. And then later, we touch a magical egg and we break the egg and then we end up at the end of literal time and the convergence of all worlds. And in Elden Ring, we open up a chest because we're greedy and then we get transported into the middle of Super Cancer Land. Point is, stop touching magic things.
I can see the dawn on Water's face with the ship